sometimes do all kinds of things to try to fit in, like say things that don't sound like you, or pretend that you know what others are talking about when you don't. Or maybe you don't share about yourself because you believe that if you do, you'll be kicked out to the outgroup. Well, many of us have been there. And instead of trying to fit in, I want to teach you about how you can cultivate belonging, which is a much more rewarding experience. In this episode, you are going to learn about what belonging feels like, how to claim it in your everyday life, and how to create it for everyone you're in contact with. My name is Alejandra Siroca, and I'm a transformative communication teacher and coach. I help multicultural individuals, couples, and change makers transform their communication to create and maintain meaningful relationships at home and at work. If you're tired of rehashing conversations in your head, walking on eggshells, or feeling misunderstood, and you want to learn how to show up in your most important relationships with clarity, confidence, and compassion, subscribe to the Language Alchemy channel. There's a difference between fitting in and belonging. And once you feel it, really feel it, I'm pretty sure you will not confuse the two again. Fitting in is when you change yourself, your communication, your behaviors, in order to be accepted. You monitor what you say and what you don't say. You watch how people around you are behaving, and you imitate it to the best of your ability. That means that when you try to fit in, you hide parts of yourself, your accent, your opinions, your past experiences. Why? Because you've learned or you believe that those parts will disqualify you from the in-group. Fitting in is effortful, and it's also performative. When you're trying to fit in, you feel tension in your body. Sometimes you get a knot in the stomach, tightness in the shoulders, or an anxious, restless sense of vigilance. But belonging is entirely different. You feel accepted as you are, not in spite of your differences, but including your differences. When you experience belonging, you don't need to shrink or edit yourself or perform or mirror others. Belonging is about learning how to show up exactly as you are, with all your brilliance, all your complexity, all your limitations, all your humanity. Belonging feels like relaxation and energy at the same time. It also feels expansive, grounding, like you can breathe all the way down into your belly center of intelligence. It feels like ease, the sense that you are comfortable in your own skin. I know both fitting in and belonging from experience here, not only as an immigrant, but also coaching people to communicate authentically. One of the hardest things about being an immigrant is that you exist in two worlds. And something that most immigrants experience is that you try to fit in both of them at the same time. When I made the decision to move to the United States, my parents were supportive, but some members of my family had a very hard time with it. And when we have a hard time with someone else's decisions, we don't always say so directly. We don't always say, "I'm sad that you're leaving," or "I'm scared for you," or "I miss you so much." Instead, we communicate what we feel in ways we learn to communicate deep feelings or vulnerability. So what do? We criticize, we use passive aggression, we say things that we may later regret. In my case, I heard from people I love and people who love me that I was unpatriotic for leaving the country where I was born and raised. I heard things like, "You don't live here, so you don't know, and you don't have a right to an opinion." Or, "You're an American now, you're not Argentinian." Or, "You don't even speak like an Argentinian anymore." And during the same time, I heard all these things from people who love me and I love from Argentina. On the northern side of the American continent, in the United States, I heard things like, "You're not from here, so you wouldn't know." Or, "I'm surprised you know so much about American history." As if I wasn't supposed to simply because I was born somewhere else. After hearing these comments again and again, I, like most immigrants, adapted in both worlds. When I visited Argentina, I would exaggerate my Argentinian accent, or as I shared in a previous episode, I had become a vegetarian, but I would hide that and eat meat because it felt safer than explaining a choice that could become one more thing that made me different, that would give someone the chance to say, see, you're not Argentinian anymore. And that was the same reason why I wouldn't share much about my life in the United States. And in the United States, I would pretend I already knew things I hadn't learned yet. Or I would not ask questions if those around me seemed to know what they were talking about. Or I would try to sound as American as possible. I would laugh when others laughed, even though I didn't get the joke. For most immigrants, myself included, the physical experience of trying to fit in is exhausting because the brain is hypervigilant, frequently scanning, checking what others are doing or saying, trying to replicate it, imitate it, or editing yourself. After I became an immigrant and built a life in a country that was not the one I was raised in or born in, I understood something I had not understood before. That this is not just my story or my experience. Every immigrant I know has told me a version of it. The challenges you go through and the effort it takes to live in the in-between space of two countries, two cultures, what seems like two different worlds. Over time, I was able to let go of my preoccupation with fitting in. And as you may know, honesty is an important value for me. So when I say over time, I mean it took years. And it took real work with teachers and guides I'm deeply grateful for. So now, when I go to Argentina, my family knows I don't eat meat. I don't exaggerate my accent. When someone notices that my Spanish sounds different and they say so, I simply tell them the truth. Yes, I've lived in different countries. I'm trained as a certified interpreter, so I've done a lot of accent modification work. I say it as a fact, neither as an apology nor as a badge of pride. It's a simple fact. And in the United States, I have claimed my identity as an immigrant. I ask questions when people are talking about things I don't understand. I admit when I don't know about a certain TV show or a type of snack or a music group from decades ago. It's not a problem anymore. In fact, being an immigrant is a gift. I can navigate two worlds. I love two places. I am shaped by more than one culture. When the soccer World Cup happens and my heart roots for Argentina, I say so out loud. I yell a lot during matches. And when I hear tango on the radio or at a restaurant and I feel that particular mix of longing and joy that for me only tango can hold, I share that with the people in my life. And when I witness how people in the United States show up in times of crisis or natural disasters, I celebrate that out loud. Or when I look around and I see my American family and friends who are so varied, who have so many diverse views, backgrounds, interests, and experience, I talk about how much I admire that. If you've been following me since we started the Multicultural Communication and Belonging series, you may remember that belonging moves in two directions. The belonging you cultivate for yourself and the belonging you cultivate for others. And in both directions, it is carried through intentional and conscious communication. So let me give you some specific practical communication tools that build belonging for yourself and for others. If you want to belong, then tell the truth about who you are. Without apology, without performance, name your accent or other parts of you as a fact. Whatever it is that makes you this beautiful, unique being that you are. So you can say, my accent is from XYZ, or I grew up eating X, or during the summer, I did XYZ, and this is how I felt. The second tool is to share what connects you to your origins. When a piece of music or a dish or a word from your first language moves you, share that. You don't have to hide the places that held you in order to belong to where you are now. You can let both be true, and you can say that out loud. And the third one is to say what you love about the place and the people with whom you are building your life now. It doesn't make you disloyal to the place where you grew up if you talk about where you are now. You know what it makes you? Multicultural. Feel the goodness of having a heart that can include multiple places, multiple people, and multiple feelings. Now, if you want to create the space for belonging for others, first, learn to say someone's name respectfully. When you meet someone whose name is unfamiliar to you, ask how to pronounce it and try it several times. A name is an identity, a lineage, a story. Making the effort to say it as close to the actual pronunciation of the name as possible is one of the clearest signals that you see the person in front of you as worth that effort. And if you have a name that people routinely mispronounce or rename for their own convenience, you have every right to correct them, gently and clearly every single time. Secondly, let people define themselves and avoid making assumptions about them. Before you ask someone where they're from, ask them what they love. Ask them what brought them to this room, to this conversation, to this event. And thirdly, use language that addresses everyone in the room. I think I shared in a newsletter about a moment at the Monterey Jazz Festival in California when the MC opened every show with jazz friends of all ages. Instead of saying ladies and gentlemen, he used these 5 words, jazz friends of all ages. It was so inclusive, welcoming, and celebratory. If you lead meetings, if you host gatherings, if you send emails to groups, notice who your language is assuming is in the room, and then ask whether it leaves anyone out. If leaving others out is not in alignment with your values, then choose language that is. Now you know, or you've been thinking about getting support with your communication, visit languagealchemy.com to find out which transformative communication program is most beneficial for you. Until next episode, and as we say in Argentina, ciao ciao!